Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, brought to you by City Current and powered by Lipscomb and Pitts Insurance. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference, so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. This time we get to talk health, wellness, all sorts of amazing things tied to Baptist Memorial Healthcare. We have their president and CEO. He's a good friend of ours, and he is an amazing change maker, Jason Little. So how are you doing, Jason?
I'm great, Jeremy. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So before we talk about all the amazing accolades and things that are going on with Baptist, let's start with you and your personal storyline and just where you grew up. So give us a little bit of the taste for where you grew up.
Sure. So I'm a Tennessee boy. Grew up just outside of Nashville, and went to school in Nashville. I'm actually the son of two educators. Both my parents worked in the schools. My mother for a lot longer. She was a school teacher, public school teacher for about 35 years. My father started there, but then ended up starting his own business. He had a cabinet shop. So nice. I grew up working in the cabinet business and know a little bit of woodworking, enough to be dangerous.
So having educators as parents, because my mom especially, she was very focused on grammatical correctness. Was that the same in your household, where I still have to go back and I'll write things out perfectly and then go back and put the contractions in?
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of that, although my mother taught third grade. And so in third grade, you learn cursive handwriting. And, my mother was always very proud of me, but she the bane of her existence was the fact that I'm not a very good cursive writer. She never could quite get me to form the letters the way she thought they needed to be formed. But so I went into healthcare, right? I mean, that's can't read any doctor.
Yeah, I say you figure doctors are stereotypically don't have great handwriting.
Seems like a good connection.
So talk about did you help your dad out quite a bit with the woodworking? I mean, how did that? I've got to imagine there's a creative side then to that probably kicks in.
Well, it was, I really did not like it at all. The family business. He built some homes too, and so I spent every summer in the cabinet shop or up in a hot attic or hanging shingles or those kinds of things. And I think he really thought I might take over the family business, but I had no desire to do that, and really kind of counted down the time till the day was done. But once I got older, like a lot of things, after you have a little bit of maturity on you come to appreciate the things you've learned. And so, when I had kids, I was able to make their baby furniture.
Nice.
In a little a shop I set up in my garage that my dad helped me do. And so, I've got a baby bed as an example. It has a little plaque on the footboard that says "Made with Love" by Dad and Granddad. We worked
cool.
on it together, so that was memories.
Well, I got to believe, especially too, to your point about maturity, at the time you think, oh, why is Dad making me do this? But then looking back, you probably reminisce and enjoy those moments with your father.
Absolutely. Well, it's a treasure, and everything's a lesson in life, right? I mean, when I talk to folks on our team, not every person you're ever going to work for is perfect, but I've learned so much from my good bosses, and I've learned perhaps even more from some of my bad bosses, from a business perspective. And so, everything's a lesson, and if you try to, whether you try to be a learning organization in your business or try to just approach your faith or your personal life or whatever with a real eye for learning, I think it's a good skill.
I agree. So brothers, sisters?
One sister, she was 10 years younger than me, so I claim a little raising on her, and she's also in the construction business. She sells granite in Nashville, so she stayed close to home, and I've lived in other places outside Tennessee, but certainly glad to be back with close to where I grew up.
Give me one lesson that you learned from your parents that still kind of stands with you today.
Well, probably the biggest one is just work ethic. I mean, my parents are very hardworking folks. My dad's in his late 60s and still works 6 days a week. And just kind of the hardest working man in show business. And so I really grew up respecting, how he gave his all to everything he did. And I'd like to think a little bit of that rubbed off. But but I had a great example in my parents for sure.
Talk about going off to college, University of Alabama, Birmingham, correct?
For grad school.
For grad school.
And went to the University of Tennessee for undergrad in Knoxville, and was very blessed and fortunate. I got a scholarship to go to UT. It was called the Whittle Scholarship. It was actually funded by a guy, his name's Chris Whittle, who was very instrumental in education. And folks who were similar to my age may remember Channel 1. He put TVs in the school systems for the first time. It was kind of controversial because they also showed commercials to help pay for it. But anyway, he funded this scholarship that provided a full ride to college, but also a fifth year to study overseas. And so that was a great opportunity. I spent a year just traveling and studying, visiting 28 countries, kind of doing the traditional college backpack thing for, discovering who you were. And
what country or what city stands out in terms of just a fun memory?
Well, gosh, there were so many. I did spend some time in London. I went to a course called Medical Ethics and the History of Healthcare, and everything in London. I mean, it was at St. Bartholomew's Hospital Medical College, which is the oldest hospital in London. When you think about things in the States in terms of decades or maybe even 100 or 2 years, there you're talking hundreds of years old. And so just to not only trace the origins of healthcare, but then also it was a comparison in both medical ethics and really the difference between the British system in healthcare and the system we enjoy here in the States. And so that was a real formative kind of learning for me to see some different perspectives. But then I just traveled around a lot of different places, Turkey, Poland, some of my favorites, just to really see a different cultures and how different folks live, and really it was a special time for sure.
So at what point did you realize that you wanted to go into medicine and the medical career? Because obviously in college you're already kind of going down that path. So what prompted that?
Well, so I've kind of been 40 ever since I was 10, I think, and
an old soul.
Yeah, and so I guess I probably discovered early on what I wanted to do. When I wasn't working for my dad in high school, I had another part-time job in a radiology clinic. And I just really enjoyed the ministry side of healthcare and taking care of folks, and toyed with being a physician, but I just hated science, and I kind of felt like that was a prerequisite, to being a good doctor. You had to at least like science a little bit. So since I didn't, I did some soul searching and had always done some leadership stuff. I was student body president at my high school, and then student body president at University of Tennessee, which again was another blessing. And I just felt like I could really parlay some leadership and business skills to make just as big a difference in a field that really appealed to me, that I felt called to, as I could as a physician. And so I kind of started down that path and never looked back in college and grad school.
So talk about the transition from graduation to then going to Baptist, and then we'll talk about kind of working your way up through Baptist, which I think is another just neat story.
Yeah, well, so interestingly, when you get done with graduate school, I went and got an MBA and a master's in health administration. When you do that, you have to do a residency or a fellowship somewhere, and so I interviewed at Baptist and was offered a role, but I also interviewed at the Mayo Clinic. And really prayed about it and decided, that's where we God was leading us, and we went out to Mayo. And my goal there was to really learn from the best. Mayo Clinic is kind of a brand name in healthcare for sure, and respected. And so there's this desire to want to go learn from the best, and they do a fantastic job, and I had a great experience. I stayed about 4.5 years. But I think one of the things that again, has been a lesson for me in life is, what's best for you and for me and for somebody is all relative. And so just from a fit perspective, I really always kind of kept in the back of my mind that experience that I had interviewing at Baptist and what a fit it felt like. And so fortunately, through a kind of a neat chain of events, I was given an opportunity to come back.
So talk about moving your family here to the Mid-South? Because obviously growing up kind of in the Nashville area, you're still relatively close, but a little bit of a transition, and from Mayo Clinic and just kind of coming, back home, so to speak, but in a way to the Mid-South. So talk about kind of that transition and then really launching your career at Baptist.
Yeah, well, so, when we were out at Mayo for about 4.5 years, there was a desire to really want to start our family, but it was a great experience because, and I tell people this, if you can ever start a marriage kind of in a new place, for us that was really foundational. I mean, they weren't my friends or her friends or my family or her family; they were our friends.
Right, you create it all together.
You just
that's a great point.
You get a fresh start, and so to begin a marriage in a new place was really neat for us. But the call of home was strong when we got ready to start a family, and I had this really miraculous chain of events where I thought I was going to go back to Nashville and work in healthcare, but through some divine intervention, I ended up accepting that job at Baptist, not knowing where I was going to be, how much money I was going to make, just convinced that that's where God wanted to place us. And so, one thing led to another, and I ended up in South Haven. At the time, we were building a new hospital. It was the largest certificate of need, largest building project in healthcare. And at the time, and that was our new building bed tower in South Haven. I got to be in charge of that project and come in as an assistant administrator. We lived in Hernando, for people who are familiar with the area, and got to start our family. We moved, and a year later, Allison was pregnant, and just off to the races.
Our youngest was born there in South Haven at Baptist, so
yeah,
we know it very well.
Well, it's funny when my son, who's 13 now, when he was born, we donated some money and got his footprint on the wall.
Nice.
And I went down. We had a ribbon cutting for our new, or a groundbreaking for our new emergency room down there a couple months ago, and I was walking around, and his footprint was still there on the wall. So I felt some satisfaction in getting to still see that little print there.
Well, let's talk about, you always talk about the power of mentorship, having some great mentors, at Baptist and obviously external as well. But talk about the career growth, because I think that's what's really interesting about you is that, you didn't just come in and automatically president CEO. You really, in many cases, were groomed for that role with many years of experience kind of working your way up through the ranks. So talk about that aspect of working your way through, being mentored along the way, and kind of learning before you step into that role.
Sure. Well, that's a fun topic for me because I have had such great mentors and have really been blessed in that way too. Speaking of moving to Hernando, my all-time mentor and hero from a business perspective and otherwise is a fellow named Jim Ainsworth, who lives in Hernando and worked for Baptist for a long time, and really, I tell people when I grow up I want to be Jim Ainsworth, and he's since retired from Baptist, but was a really powerful influence in my life for sure. But I did move around. I told people it was hard to, I didn't hold down a job very long. I moved to several different facilities.
All internal for Baptist.
All internal
right.
for Baptist. Yeah, we've got 21 hospitals across 3 states now, and so that's a neat thing to work for a large organization, because there's always a lot of opportunity. And so I guess the learning is when you get one of those opportunities, you just you do your best and you try to make the most of them. And it seemed like every time I'd show up at a new place, there was a new challenge to overcome, and so I'm kind of a people person, I think, a team guy, and it was just a new opportunity to build a team and solve the problem, and so again, just got some great opportunities and tried to make the most of them.
But I think what's interesting about that is that in the time when you look at it, you may not see the big picture, but when you step back, especially 5 years from that point, you realize that all of that, there was a purpose. So you were learning all these different challenges and how to overcome them. You were learning the dynamics of each of the different areas that you were serving. So when you get to the role of president and CEO, you have a complete understanding of the intricacies of the job, the challenges at a very local level as well.
Right.
So I think all of those prepare you for the bigger challenge as you step into the newer roles.
Well, it does, and every job's different. I mean, one of the things I learned, I started out as my first CEO job was at our facility in Collierville, which is a smaller facility relative to some of our others, and I really got to cut my teeth and get my arms around it. And then you end up at a place like Baptist Memphis, which is a 750 bed tertiary referral center, and it's just a different job. You can't have your finger on everything like you did when you were the CEO of Collierville. You got to really learn to work through other people and delegate and trust others and develop a team, because it's just too big. It'll overwhelm you, and so you're constantly not only rising to new challenges but learning new ways to be a leader. I'm grateful to have had those kind of opportunities to make some mistakes and learn along the way. Been very productive.
Who do you turn to on your end? You always hear kind of the analogy, it's lonely at the top. CEOs especially, they say, well, I don't really know who to turn to for advice. Who do you turn to for advice?
Well, I continue to have really strong mentors. I mean, my predecessor, Steve Reynolds, I'm the 5th president of Baptist in 105 years. And so leadership stability has been a hallmark of our organization. And so Steve himself was there for 43 years and continues to be, an important mentor for me and hey, how would you have done this kind of thing, because he's done it. And so that's important. But then I also call on other peers across the country who are in similar situations. I have a peer group circle that I meet with a couple times a year, other people doing kind of the same thing I'm doing, and you learn that the world is big, but it's not that big, and everybody's kind of facing similar challenges. And if you just don't get too far out there on a limb before you stick up your hand and reach for help. I'm one of the guys that I will pull over and ask for directions when I'm lost, and that's never been a hang up for me, and so I do that liberally in my career too.
Nice. So talk about, I know that, this in and of itself could be a whole different podcast, so we're not going to go too far into it, but there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of challenges going on right now with healthcare. Yes. And I know that reimbursement rates, there's so many different areas that we could obviously go into, but just for the basics, give us maybe one or two, when you talk about trends, things going on right now in your world, what are some of the important ones, pluses and minuses?
Yeah, well, I think the one that's in the news the most is just response to what the government's going to do. Every year, just governmental influence over how we think about healthcare continues to grow. It started with Medicare and then Medicaid, the insurance for folks who were who don't have insurance or have difficulty affording it on their own. Then it went into Medicaid expansion and other, a number of other categories where, for a lot of health systems, kind of government influenced payer sources end up being maybe 60 to 70% of your business. So you have to really pay attention to regulation, to discussions that are going on, and certainly there's a lot going on in Washington right now with the Senate proposing a new healthcare bill. We spent really about 7 years responding and getting ready to the Affordable Care Act, so-called Obamacare, and so now we're obviously paying a lot of attention to what else will happen in the Trump administration, and so what does that mean practically for a patient? And I'd say, really what we think is that we'll continue to be asked to do, more with less. If you listen to what's coming out of the Senate, there'll be some additional changes to Medicaid, and for us that really means reorganizing ourselves to do a better job taking care of the population and the communities we serve. And we've always had a big belief in healthcare being local, having facilities in small towns and where people can access care. But I think now it's not even just about access. It's really about getting in and working with people in preventive care, in wellness, and really accepting the risk to partner with patients so that we can not just see them when they're sick, but help them when they're well. Mm-hmm. And that's a big calling for all of us in healthcare.
What would you tell, and actually, I think, for me, the older I get especially, I tell my family, and especially my brother, because I'm trying to recruit him to move here, but I tell him all the time is that, one of the things to me that makes a big difference in terms of where you live, and I'm using you as the perfect example, is if I get sick, I know that I can go to Baptist, and it's not just that I'm going to be taken care of. I know the people that are taking care of me.
Yeah.
And so I know that I can trust you and your team that you're going to take good care of me. And in a large city where you might just be a number, you don't always know that the people that are going to take care of you have your best interest at heart. And I feel like that's one of the things that really makes the Mid-South, but especially Baptist, so special, is that I know when I walk in, they're going to know me and they're going to take really good care of me.
Well, thank you. That's high praise, and I'm grateful for that. We do have great healthcare organizations in our community, and I certainly think Baptist is one of those. One of our goals, and you said it in your question, one of our stated goals as an organization is really to develop the trusted brand. When people think about brands, they don't often brand their healthcare, but we really we really want to earn that right to be the trusted brand. And so when we think about it, and I think this is applicable for any industry, the one word that we're chasing after, that we want to be known for, differentiated because of, is this word empathy. And that means a lot to us in healthcare. It immediately conjures up, I think, notions of compassion and caring, and certainly that's a part of it. But really, I think empathy is a lot more. It's understanding. It's understanding at a root level, because every patient's different. And while we try to develop recipes and clinical pathways so that we're able to take care of a particular diagnosis the exact same way, the best way every time, everybody's bringing different circumstances to the table, and if we're listening and we're attuned to those in a real empathetic way, I think the person with the best insight wins often at the end of the day, and those rules apply to healthcare too. And so we're really working hard to be through our medical records and through our visits with patients, through all the information and data that we have, to be the person with the best insight, so that you do trust us to respond to that understanding in the right way.
Technology also plays a really important role, obviously, not only with the medical advancements and the all the different surgical procedures and things along those lines, but also too, I'm thinking now, just the ability to interact with physicians. You have an online portal that makes everything extremely easy, where you can take care of not only yourself but your family and loved ones as well. Talk about technology and that role with Baptist.
Well, healthcare really is changing. I mean, it's not just about coming to the hospital anymore. I mean, so much of what used to be done in the hospital now can be done at home even, or in outpatient settings. And knowledge really is power, and technology has enabled us to do things that, people could have only imagined even 10 years ago. And so for us, technology is a chassis on which we can really build an increasing amount of consumerism. I mean, everybody's well aware of, what Amazon can bring to your doorstep tomorrow.
Right.
And
I feel like every day is Christmas at our house.
Every day is Christmas. That's right. and so we really have the same kinds of opportunities in healthcare through our electronic medical records. So, right now I go in for a lab test or a diagnostic screening, and I'm going to get my results back on my cell phone within a few hours, just the same time my doctor does, and we can pour over that information together. I mean, those are first steps kind of thing, but we're already in the second and third steps, where we're now visiting doctors via what is essentially FaceTime. I mean, to use Apple parlance, but really for us it's through our Baptist One Care system, where we have e-visits, video visits. And everything is right there, and you never have to leave your couch, and you think to yourself, well, okay, I can capture that vision when I have a sinus infection or need some antibiotics, but what about when I'm really sick? And I think folks would be amazed when they dive into what's going on right now, how many different things are being treated just through telemedicine and these technologies that we have. It's quite amazing. I mean, we can, through tools that are easily available, we can get all kinds of vital signs just by things attached to an iPad.
Right.
It's amazing.
It really is. It's transforming medicine, but it's also, like you said, it's enabling you to to really increase that intimacy, the relationship, the relational value between you and the people that you're serving, the patients. So I think it's extremely powerful. What would you tell, especially the youth, the college students right now that want to get into medicine? What would you tell them? Because I think, right now you hear that there's a shortage in many cases, but on your end, I mean, you're serving right on the front lines. What would you tell those that are interested in going into this career?
Do it. Despite all the different, things that you hear about the complexity of healthcare, and it is, and the things that we need to fix, and we do. I mean, it still is. I know of no other industry that's psychologically and emotionally driven than healthcare, and so it makes sense that those people that do it well are those folks who also, feel drawn to things that are psychologically and emotionally driven. Those are able to give those kind of responses. And if people are thinking about that, oftentimes they know enough. They have enough self-awareness to know that they would, they'd be good at it. And really, I can't think of any other profession as dynamic and that's going to be changing as much as healthcare, over the next 20 years. But one thing's for certain. I mean, somebody told me one time that there's only two recession-proof industries in America. One of them is funeral homes, and the other one is hospitals. And it is true that unfortunately, I think we're always going to have folks who are ill and need care. And a study was done by the Memphis Business Journal recently on wage earners 10 years after graduation, and in this community, those that were earning the most after 10 years were those who had made the decision to go into health, whether that's nursing or radiology or physician, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And we do have shortages, and I think you can always count on a job, which is important when you're borrowing money to go to school. Am I going to have a job when I get finished to help pay those loans back? But I think what's even more important is you're always going to have a rewarding job. I tell people, sometimes you get advice. You need to go do something you love, and I think that's decent advice. But I don't know that it's the right advice. I think it's more important to love what you do. You can go pick something to do that you love, but I mean, whatever you set your mind to, there's something about it that you can find to love. And I think the good news in healthcare is there's a lot out there that is extremely rewarding, and I certainly love what I do.
Well, and to your point too, if you enjoy helping people, you get to see that impact. You get to see that right off the bat in terms of the immediate impact of working with these individuals and these families, these patients that you're helping.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, every business is special, and so I don't think we have a lock on this, but I will say it's a real privilege and an awesome responsibility to take care of people at their most vulnerable hour. And we do things for people that they can't do for themselves, right? And that's a pretty awesome privilege.
What would you say on your end? Because obviously you've won tremendous accolades at the individual level with the hospitals, but obviously as a system as well. Give us maybe one or two that put a smile on your face, that either the legacy side or even just you in terms of stepping into the role as president and CEO.
Well, I mean, I think healthcare is a team sport. So it's hard to take a lot of pride over personal accolades, but I was recognized by the American College Healthcare Executives as the young administrator, and that was at the time was very special to me, because when I started, and I would tell if there are college students listening to this podcast. You get thrown into things, perhaps like I did. I was a CEO when I was 28, which was, pretty young for my profession. And the first question that people asked me was, not, how's my job going to change tomorrow, or what's your vision? It was, how old are you? That was always the first question I got. And but particularly when you're in an industry where maybe you're helping to manage or lead folks that are twice your age, and so I always had a pat answer for that. I would say, well, I am young enough to learn a whole lot from you, but I think I'm old enough to teach you something too. And so let's go do that together. And that really served me well. And I think receiving that that award by the college as a young administrator was certainly satisfying. But I think all the awards that Baptist has received for patient experience are really the most special. I mean, it's incumbent upon us to provide great quality and to do it at a cost that is reasonable and affordable. But healthcare in some respects is almost in certain places is becoming kind of like the airlines. You may have a different feeling about Southwest versus Delta versus United, but at the end of the day, you get on the internet and you see which one's the lowest price, and you go take that flight because you expect that they're all going to deliver the same quality. You expect that they're all going to take off and land just like the other one, and to a certain extent, maybe there's that expectation in healthcare too. You expect that they're all going to be able to, to deliver the medicines and the treatments that are going to get you well, and so over and above that, then we can stand back and say, this is what our patients are saying about us, and we can hold up those patient experience scores and say, you know what, we are exhibiting that empathy that we're after. Those are the most special.
And building the trust.
Yeah.
So talk about from your standpoint, obviously when you have someone like Stephen Reynolds who's been in that role for 43 years, you said, I mean, that's a long time for that legacy piece. And then for you to step in and try to bring your own ideas and goals, what was that like, and what is that like in terms of setting your own agenda to an organization that has had very stable leadership and trying to not necessarily move a very large ship, but bring your own kind of flair and goals to that organization?
Sure. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think the most important underlying element in your question that people should look out for is, are you really given the freedom to go in those new directions, or is there a pressure because folks are looking over your shoulder? And again, I've been fortunate that Steve definitely had a vision for the organization. I had a very similar one, but it didn't mean that we had to agree on everything, and nor that as he was transitioning out that he really tried to impose any of those on me. And whenever I speak with young people who say, what advice would you give us for that next job, I always say two things. Doesn't matter where you're going to work, doesn't matter how much money you're going to make, go interview for fit. Fit is the number one most important thing, because when you fit in a place, you're just going to be successful. And then the second thing, less important, but still something to keep your antenna up about, is the person that you're going to work for, your direct boss. What kind of job security do they have? Are they still trying to climb the corporate ladder, and are they comfortable enough in their own skin to turn over some projects, to allow you to grow, to allow you to learn, because those are really the best kinds of people to work for. And Steve was certainly one of those kind of guys for me. And so I really have had the foundation to be able to take the organization the directions that seemed appropriate to myself and the team. And so, really, to answer your question, I think this charge of the future about caring for the population and not just episodic care is really how we're trying to develop ourselves. There's a big agenda to increase our ambulatory offerings. That's our it's a healthcare word for just outpatient things that we do outside the hospital, and certainly that's where the industry is going and where things are growing. People are always going to need emergency rooms and intensive care units. I mean, that's something that the Amazons of the world, at least not in the foreseeable future, can do. So that's always going to be a core part of our business. But I talk a lot about businesses that say, listen, we can't be all things to all people. That sounds good, but in healthcare right now, I think we've really got to try. I mean, in order for me to be able to take the best care of this community possible and to be accountable and to accept risk for taking care, I can't have any gaps. And so, we're moving in a vision right now where we close any gap we've had. For us, that meant the ability to take care of pediatric patients in new ways with our children's hospital. It meant being able to take care of behavioral health patients, patients with mental illness. We opened a new behavioral health hospital here in this community about 18 months ago, and that's often a diagnosis that doesn't get a lot of airtime or a lot of folks.
Well, you have Camp Good Grief. I mean, you have so many things that, to your point, are outside of kind of the normal scope, if you will, but are really focused on helping in a lot of different ways. Yeah,
and so that gap closure ends up being a big part of our vision of what we're growing to. And I fundamentally believe no matter what happens in Washington or whatever employers are desiring or patients are desiring, if we really can have the entire continuum at our disposal, so to speak, so that we can deal it out in a way that's in the best interest of patients, we'll do well.
So last couple of themes, and then we'll do just kind of a lightning round of just quick questions and answers.
Boy. Okay.
Yeah, but talk about so in your role, it's a 24/7 job. Balancing faith, family, activities, recreation with the job. I think when you talk about work-life balance is important. But you yourself, you serve on nonprofit boards. You're heavily involved in the community outside of your job. You also serve within the church, and so talk about kind of that side of just the power of kind of your true north with faith, the power of giving back and serving in the community outside of just in your role with Baptist.
Well, it sounds cliche. Everybody says get your priorities in order, and for me that's faith, family, and work, and I know a lot of people kind of share that rank order, and you need a good litmus test for that, for how you're doing. For me, that's my wife. I mean, if I'm getting out of balance, she helps point that out. It's hard.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's hard for busy people to be able to say that word no at times, and I'm not very good at that. But again, if you're doing things that you love and you're involved in things that you really feel strongly about, then you love the work, and so I do try to keep things in balance. But what's so neat for me is I do feel like all three of those things have such a unique intersection. I do feel what I do as a ministry, and that while I am active in church and I teach a Sunday school class and I do a number of other things, that I get to make an impact on my faith and on the kingdom just as much at work every day as I do maybe at church on Sunday or in raising my kids. And so there's a lot of overlap and kind of concentric circles. And so for me, really helps with work-life balance, and I feel lucky in that regard.
Well, even on the Baptist side, it's healing, preaching, and teaching, right?
That's right. Very good.
There you go.
We've done our job.
So you have all three together with what you do personally.
Well, that's right, and that's another part of what we're trying to do right now is we do have that mission statement that says we're going to preach, teach, and heal, and it's easy to just kind of focus on the healing part, but we want to really have a balanced scorecard, and so the preaching and teaching part is areas that we're working just as hard on. We've opened new residency programs in the last 3 years. Of course, our college, the Baptist College of Health Sciences, that's a rare perspective too, to be a leader of an organization, a healthcare organization that also is out training 1,100 students getting their bachelor degrees, in downtown Memphis in nursing and lab science and other things. And then be the largest provider of care to the homeless with our Operation Outreach Van that's every year delivering care to 3,500 people that find themselves homeless. I mean, it's not hard to see where the preaching is coming in, and as a not-for-profit, and there are a lot of great healthcare organizations, and there's certainly nothing wrong with for-profit healthcare organizations. But at the end of the day, I don't take for granted that we don't have stockholders to pay, and nobody on Wall Street's kind of getting rich off of what we do, and so that affords us an opportunity too as a not-for-profit healthcare organization to do some neat things, and hopefully we're taking advantage of that.
Absolutely, I love it. So let's switch over. Lightning round. It's just basically me, whatever random questions pop into my head, and it's
That's
quick
scary.
Answers on your end.
Exactly. I know you. That's scary.
So let's start with just what's a recent book you've read, or something that what's the latest thing you've read?
Well, it probably probably will not be of interest to your listeners, but the book I just put down was Interpreting the Pauline Epistles. So I told you I admitted I was a Sunday school teacher, and I try to be just as good at that as I hopefully am in my work. So I end up reading a lot of scriptural kinds of interpretive books, and hopefully that makes me a better business leader too.
Absolutely. So what do you like to do to relax?
Well, I like to kind of hang out in my workshop a little bit. We talked about the cabinet shop earlier, and so amazingly now that's kind of become a place where I can go out and relieve some stress. I am also a wannabe farmer. I'm kind of a poser. I'm not a great one, but I am right now. This weekend, I've got to get my pumpkins in the ground.
Nice.
And so I'm planting an acre of pumpkins over the weekend, and for me, that's incredibly relaxing, and you also kind of get to, I believe, kind of get to see how God works, when you put a seed in the ground and a pumpkin comes out.
So do you involve the kids in that? Or is
oh,
this
yeah. No. They got to get out there, too, and they help me sell them. And for $1, Jeremy, you too can come to my house and
I'll take you up on that.
Have
That's
a
good.
pumpkin.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
That's how the kids earn their spending money.
Is it the Little Pumpkin Patch?
Well, I don't know if we have an official name, but we do have 9 varieties to choose from. So come on by and we'll have a hayride, and the kids will try and strong arm you into buying a pumpkin. So they have
or 2 or 3,
so they have some spending money.
I love it. What's a favorite place to go on vacation, either with family or just you and your wife?
Well, that's a fun one because we're now my son really got into collecting passport stamps at the national parks. When you go to the national parks now, you can get a stamp at each time you go to one, and there are 409 of them. And my son is dead set on going to each one. But we did take a family vacation, and we went to Yellowstone. Just got back, and
you didn't just go. You rented an RV.
Well, we did. We rented. I'd never done that before. It was kind of the Robin Williams movie. We rented the RV and drove it around, and I was
no technology for the kids.
No technology. We were dodging buffalo and moose and everything else, but I managed to make it back in one piece, and a lot of memories to show for it.
What was one of your favorite parts of that? Was it the kayaking, the hiking, or whitewater rafting?
It's just the wildlife. I mean, anybody that likes the outdoors really ought to go to Yellowstone. On our last day we're leaving, we're driving out, and I can keep in mind I'm in a 30-foot RV, and there are 2 bison on the road. And everybody heading in the opposite direction could stop and wait for the bison to walk past them. But for me, they're in my lane. And so I drove 4 miles at 2 miles an hour with 2 bison in front of me and 800 cars behind me waiting for these bison to get off the road, and I'm kind of leading the parade. So
did they know that you were waiting for bison, or could they see around the RV?
Yeah,
they think this guy's crazy?
Well, I'm sure a lot of them thought I was crazy, but when you made curves and when they eventually kind of wandered off, they saw, oh yeah, that's why this idiot
He's really taking in the sights.
Yeah, I was driving 2 miles. But I mean, for 4 miles, my kids and I, we were kind of and my wife, we were the mayor of the bison parade. Right there at the front in the choice seats. We've got a lot of fun video. I think that probably entitles me to get to do something at Shelby Farms with the bison now. I mean, I don't know. I might have to talk to those folks and see what I'm qualified to do now.
What do you enjoy taking, like newcomers to Memphis, or first time visitors? What's something that you enjoy taking them to do outside of maybe taking them to see your work? What do you enjoy taking them to do here?
Oh man, I love the Redbirds, and what a great park we have. And so I'm a baseball fan anyway, and the throwback and the nostalgia and the pastime and all of that kind of intersects right in downtown Memphis at a great park and a great team, and the kids have fun, and that's one of our favorite spots.
So do you like to stay up late, wake up late, go to bed early, wake up early? What's your normal routine?
Both. I don't require a lot of sleep. I never have really. So I'm definitely an early person, but can stay awake pretty late too.
So coffee? No coffee?
I'm ashamed to admit that. I'm a healthcare guy, but I'm a Diet Mountain Dew person.
Okay.
I don't do hot drinks. So I wake up in the morning and probably to my physician's chagrin, I drink a Diet Mountain Dew.
Well, at least your diet.
At least it's diet, right? Forget about all the caffeine I'm stuffing in my body, but the Diet Mountain Dew, you got to do the do.
Since we're on drinks and diet, what do you enjoy eating? What types of food do you like?
Well, that's my problem. Can I tell you one really quick national park story? So our next trip next year, we've already reserved. We're going to take the mules down the Grand Canyon. If you remember that Brady Bunch episode, and so
you're doing a lot of movie themes with the parks here.
Yeah. So you take the mules down the Grand Canyon, but here's the problem: with your clothes and everything, you have to weigh less than 200 pounds, and I don't. So, so right now I've set my mule goal, and I've got a year to get mule ready, and so all those things that I love to eat, I'm trying to set by the wayside at the moment.
Well, at least people that are listening will know that not to tempt you or to.
Yeah, that's right. Stay away with cookies and ice cream. I'm trying to be a good boy.
What's a favorite? Like you mentioned, obviously studying abroad, but what's a favorite just other vacation that stands out just between you and your wife?
Well, we really enjoy snow skiing. That's kind of our place. For those that can't see me, you're not missing anything. But I do have red hair and fair skin, and so the beach has never been my as big a cup of tea for me. The sand, the sun, everything. But I do love the mountains, and so we love to snow ski and try and do that every chance we get. And it's really become a great family vacation too. It used to be kind of a romantic place to go with the wife, but all the kids have learned to ski now, and everybody can kind of do it together and be equally challenged, and so it's been fun for us.
So it can be scripture, it can be favorite quote, but give us a favorite quote that you either live by or just enjoy.
Well, I love the one about people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And for me, that's made all the difference in my business and personal life. I tell folks when you start out as a manager of anything, really, there's kind of this innate desire to want to be popular, to want to be liked, and that's easy. It's an easy trap to fall into. I think what I've learned over time is that's really not the bar to shoot for. You want to be respected. It doesn't matter how popular you are, but you really want to be respected. And so, because every decision you make is going to make somebody happy and maybe somebody else not so happy, but you can strive for that goal with still having everybody understand how much you care. And so I think that's always been the right chord to strike for me.
So many, many years from now, because obviously you're still building your legacy every single day, but what do you hope that your legacy is, not only with Baptist Memorial Healthcare, but also just here in the Mid-South? What do you hope your legacy is?
Well, I just really at the end of the day I get to stand on the shoulder of giants every day with an organization that's been around for 105 years, and I just want people to say, we talked about it. This is the trusted brand that was able to really take care of me and my family, and that I trusted to take care of my kids, my most special possessions. And if we can continue to do that and be a brand that people look to, not just in Memphis, but in all the places that we serve, because again, if it weren't for Baptist, there might not be hospitals in Huntington, Tennessee, or Booneville, Mississippi, or some of these places where we're able to again have the privilege of caring for folks right in their backyard. And so I hope we'll be able to continue to do that for the next 100 years.
There you go. Last question is the easiest, is where do listeners go to learn more about Baptist, talk about the website, social media? Where would you send them to learn more about Baptist Memorial Healthcare?
Well, we got a great website, so just Google Baptist Memorial, baptistonline.org, and can find a ton of information. We also have 1-800 numbers and other things that you can call, because we are really working to be a one-stop shop. And if you haven't already, sign up and get a Baptist One Care account, because all your physicians, all your medical records, all your hospital stays, your immunization records for your kids for school when you need to print it out. I mean, it's all right there at your fingertips. And so, no matter how much of your health care you get at Baptist, you still really, I think, need a Baptist One Care account. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and it's an amazing tool that you'll have right there on your iPhone or your computer.
Well, Jason, you are a change maker. You're making a huge difference. You and your organization, Baptist Memorial Healthcare, your whole team, absolutely amazing. So, greatly appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Hey, thanks. This was a lot of fun. You can follow me too, by the way, on Twitter and LinkedIn. So we've got a lot of healthcare information out there too. So if you tend to tweet or do the LinkedIn, look me up that way too. But thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, Jeremy. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance. To learn more about our guests and to share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com. Connect with us online using @CityCurrent or follow the conversation using the hashtag ChangeMakers. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.